Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Okay, sound check okay.
I think screen share ചെയ്യുന്നതും കൂടി എന്റെ സൗണ്ട് കേൾക്കുന്നില്ലേ?
കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ട് സുഹൈൽ.
കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. സുഹൈല് സ്ക്രീൻ ഷെയർ ചെയ്തു.
മ്യൂട്ടിൽ നിന്നോ? ഞാൻ ഇൻട്രൊഡ്യൂസ് ചെയ്ത് ക്യൂ തരുന്നവരെ മ്യൂട്ടിൽ നിന്നോ? അതിനുശേഷം മ്യൂട്ട് ഒഴിവാക്കിയാൽ മതി.
പെർഫെക്റ്റ്.
അപ്പൊ ഇതില് കേറുന്ന ആൾക്കാർ കുറവായിരിക്കും അല്ലെ? അധികവും ലൈവ് യൂട്യൂബിലല്ലേ ആളുണ്ടായ?
അല്ല ഇതിൽ വരും ഒരുപാട്. ഐ തിങ്ക് ഒരു 100 രജിസ്ട്രേഷൻസ് ഉണ്ട് സൂമിൽ തന്നെ. ഇന്നലെ ഞാൻ ഇമെയിൽ ചെയ്തതിന് ചാൻസ് ഉണ്ട് ഇതിലും വരാന്.
ഓക്കെ 11:59 12 ആകുമ്പോ വന്ന ബാക്കി എല്ലാവരും മ്യൂട്ടിലാണെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ ടേക്ക് ഓവർ ചെയ്യാം. ബാക്കിൽ സെക്യൂരിറ്റിക്ക് ആദ്യം ആഫിലും റെഡി ആണല്ലോ.
സ്ക്രീൻ ഷെയർ ഓക്കെ ആയ ഒരു മിനിറ്റ്. On all who can start sharing when someone Afil bhai ഈ ഷെയറിംഗിന്റെ who can share all participants അല്ല who can start
അല്ലല്ല, നിങ്ങൾ സുഹൈലിന് മാത്രമാണ് അതിന്റെ പെർമിഷൻ ഉള്ളൂ. ലൈക്ക് എന്താണ് അതിനകത്ത് ചോദിക്കുന്നത്?
who can share only host.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Okay, we'll be starting in few minutes, inshallah.
Allah. Assalamu alaikum everyone.
Alaikum assalam.
We're waiting for a few more people to join. The event will start shortly. We'll give it 5 minutes for everyone to slowly trickle in. We've got participants both on Zoom as well as on our YouTube channel. We'll just give it a few more minutes before we start. We'll give it one more minute and then we'll start. At sharp 12:05, we'll be starting. Okay, 12:05. I think it's good to start. We've got several participants across both our streams on Zoom as well as our YouTube live channel. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to the first session of Journey of Islam to Kerala and North America, the Sacred Voyage. Quick introduction. Myself, Mushir Alambat. I'm the Vice President for Administration at MAC. MAC stands for Malayali Muslim Association of Canada. As the name suggests, this is an organization that serves Malayali Muslims living, working, and studying in Canada. If you have a few minutes, do visit our website where we have more information on our vision, goals, and all the activities that we've executed in the past few years. So today, we are here because Canadian government has recognized the month of October as the Islamic History Month. What does that mean? So the government has dedicated this specific month to recognize the achievements of Muslims in Canada and celebrate these achievements at the same time. Canadians and Canada government recognize that Muslims form a significant part of the community as well as contribute to the development of the country, making it more resilient than ever. So it's a proud month for us. We've got a month being celebrated by a Western country for our religion. And to recognize this, what MAC has done is put a flip on it and connected it with the roots that we have back in Kerala. And that's why it's termed as Journey of Islam to Kerala and North America. And today, we have several members from our community as well as across the world attending this event. And Jazakallah khair for all who've taken the time today to come attend this event and make it a success. As well as we have our key partners today who have contributed to this event. The first shout out is for our proud sponsor, Shiba Kaladki. So for any of your real estate needs, please do approach Shiba. She would be able to help you out. And the other partner today who collaborated on this event is the Kannur City Heritage Foundation, as well as the other books publications. We've worked closely with them to get this event to you across in such organized manner. Now, without taking much time, I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Suhail Hashim. He's a registered nurse and a public health professional. He's a history enthusiast. Apart from Islamic history, he has published articles and given presentations on travel, global health, and social justice. He's currently pursuing a certification in modern Islamic history from Al Balag Academy in the UK. So before I hand it off to him, I would like to emphasize that there is a Q&A session at the end of this event. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them up in the chat box if you're on Zoom, or if you're on YouTube Live, there is an option to add your comments and put your questions out there as well. We'll take them in the order it comes and try to answer most of it at the end of the session. So without further ado, I hand it off to Suhail, our speaker for today. Suhail.
Thank you, Mushir. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin. First of all, I would like to thank the Malayali Muslim Association of Canada for giving me this opportunity to organize and present this event on the topic of Sacred Voyage, Journey of Islam to Kerala and North America. It's a very broad topic, so without further ado, I'm going to start the presentation. And these are my objectives. As we know, this month's theme for the Islamic History Month Canada is Black Muslim History. We'll touch upon it. And I'll start my presentation with the importance of history. So firstly, why history? Why and how history? Now, as a Muslim, or for a Muslim, the most important book is the Holy Quran. And we know the Holy Quran, 1/3 of the Holy Quran is history, or it's stories from the past. So why did Allah, our creator, try to, why is he giving us a message through these stories? And let me give you an example. As a health professional, when I was in nursing school, one of the most difficult subjects for me was pharmacology. There are a lot of drugs like antibiotics, diabetic drugs. Now it's very hard to remember if they put it in a book. But when I started practicing, when I remember I gave so-and-so drug to patient X and so-and-so drug to patient Y, and this side effect happened, and this incident happened, that incident or that history sticks to my mind. So this could be a reason why the Holy Quran is trying to narrate history, so we take in the message. Another important book in Islamic history is Muqaddimah. It was written by the 12th century or the medieval scholar and jurist Ibn Khaldun. He was the first historian who gave a science to history. He tried to analyze history in a way like why those events unfolded, what caused that event, how could have that event been prevented? And there is something in his book, in his Muqaddimah, the beginning chapter of Muqaddimah, he mentioned something known as cyclical nature of Muslim dynasties. This means just like we human beings have a life, some of them live 100 years, some of them live 80 years, some of them live 60 years, the Muslim dynasties also have a life. You will see that in my coming slides, and you will understand it better. Then we have Eurocentrism. Now, this picture over here is very self-explanatory. What is Eurocentrism? We tend to learn things, or we have learned things from a European perspective. Columbus discovered America, but weren't there people in the United States and Canada before Columbus? There was indigenous people. There is documentation of presence of Muslims in America before Columbus. So that is Eurocentrism, looking at things from an European perspective. So there is a need for us to look at things from all perspectives and not just European perspective. You can see a picture over there. That is a scholar from Mapla history, from Kerala history. His name is Sayyid Tangal. He came from Yemen and he lived during the British India. He was such a respected scholar that his writings, his fatwas, created so much headache for the British that they had to exile him from Kerala. And he was very well respected in Kerala those days. But if you read the local colonial or the European texts about Sayyid Tangal, he is mentioned as an extremist or a fanatic. But if you read the local archives in Arabic Malayalam, you get a different story. Hence, the need for methods of history. Other thing is, history is not a part-time thing. Like me, I cannot call myself a historian, maybe a storyteller. If you want to study history, say, for example, if you want to study the history of Kerala, you have to know Arabic Malayalam, you have to know Malayalam, and you have to know Arabic, because only then you can take out the archives and do research. Or take, for example, of Turkey. If you want to learn about the Turkish history, you have to know Turkish, you have to know Persian, and you have to know Arabic. So saying that, let me just take a step back and go to the farewell Hajj, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in his Hajjatul Wida, after delivering the sermon, he concludes by saying, "I have completed my mission. Now I have brought the message to the people over here. Now it is the responsibility of the people over here to take this message around the world." See, the Islam's message started spreading during the time of Prophet Muhammad. We can see that, like in Kerala, it is believed to have reached during the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I just want you guys to have this picture. So after that, there was the Rashidun Caliphate after the death of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We had Abu Bakr, Usman, Abu Bakr, Umar, Usman, and Ali, may Allah be pleased with them all. And there was a war during the time of, called a war of fitna, during the time of Ali radiallahu anhu. And unfortunately, Islam split into two sects, Shia and Sunni. And we are going to focus on Sunni today. Then we had the Umayyads. Now, Umayyads focused on expansion of Islam during their time. And Islam reached North India, North Malabar, North India, through Muhammad ibn Qasim, and other parts of the world like North Africa. Then during the Abbasids' time, they mostly focus on, rather than expansion, that was a golden era of Islam. Like they focused on medical sciences, other sciences, and Islam advanced in an educational sphere. And if you remember, like I mentioned about the cyclical nature of Islamic dynasty, these dynasties lived for 100 years. You can see Abbasids till 1258, but during 1800s, they started weakening. Except the Ottomans. See, the Ottomans lived for a very long, like in 1402, even though they were destroyed by the Timur, but there was a rebirth in 1413. Now, what was the reason for the strength of Ottomans? Now remember this, even if you don't take anything from this presentation, I'm going to give out 3 E's in this presentation. So the reason the Ottomans were stronger compared to other empires were their focus on education, the first E. This is very important. And education doesn't only mean education of the worldly sciences, but also your internal spiritual nature. Like the Ottomans had a Sufi saint by the name Ibn Arabi. So they used to take the internal spiritual strength was provided by Ibn Arabi or such saints. So they used education to uplift their iman, their spiritual nature, and also they advanced in other worldly sciences. And you will see that even the Moplas, the Kerala Muslims, had good relations with the Ottomans. Now, how did Islam travel? So these are the 5 things, and I'm going to give examples from a Mopla or Kerala and American context. So da'wah and trade, this can be tied together. As a Muslim, like I said in the beginning, it's a responsibility of a Muslim to carry the message of Islam. So the traders from Arabia, when they traveled, and when they traveled to Kerala through the Indian Ocean, they not only brought goods, but they also brought the message of Islam. And so, especially from a Kerala historical perspective, Kerala Muslim history, trade and dawah played a prominent role. So through trade, they brought the message of Islam too. Migration, the people living in North America, we are a good example. We immigrated here, and people like us brought Islam to these countries. Influencers, a good example of influencers is Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and Warisuddin Muhammad. So because of these personalities, as you know, we'll go into it, they were part of an organization, a prototypic Islamic organization called Nation of Islam. It was not real Islam. You'll see, we'll go into it when I go further. Nation of Islam was a prototypic Islamic movement, as the scholars like to call it. But because of Malcolm X, because of Muhammad Ali, because of Warisuddin Muhammad, they were able to influence a huge number of Black Muslims into traditional Sunni Islam. So that is an example of influence. Intermarriage. Kerala is once again a good example of intermarriage. The local Dravidian women, they married the Arab traders or the foreign traders who came to Kerala. And that's how Islam, that's the other way how Islam spread in Kerala. Now, also other factors like justice, unity, and universality are some of the reasons which led to the advancement of Islam around the world. We know Islam is a religion of justice. And once again, if I take an example of Kerala, you know, we had the system called Jammi system, where we had the upper caste landlords not doing anything, and they made the lower caste Hindus had to face a lot of evil atrocities. So when they saw Islam, when Islam came into Kerala, Islam doesn't have caste system. It treated everyone equally. So they accepted Islam. Islam is also a universal religion. Let me give you a good example for this. Now, you might have heard of, especially the people in Kerala, might have heard of something known as Marumakatayam, matrilineal communities. And it's still being practiced in parts of Kerala, like Kannur, parts of Kozhikode, Malappuram, etc. It's called matrilineal communities. Interestingly, there's a study by Mahmoud Kuria. Matrilineal Muslim communities are found along the Indian Ocean, not only in Kerala. They are found in Sri Lanka. They are found in Somalia, like the coast of Africa, in Malaysia, Philippines. So what this shows is that Islam doesn't ask us to get rid of our culture. It just asks us to amend our culture within the precinct of Sharia law. So if you don't have, you might have seen the video by Kannur City Heritage Foundation. The mosques in Kerala, they didn't have a dome, the traditional dome and pillar. Whatever is the culture of the land, as long as you're following the Sharia, that is fine. It's a very, in other words, it's a very universal religion. Now coming to Islam in Kerala. Now Islam, like I said, Islam reached, the Arabs had relations with Kerala since pre-Islamic times, up to an extent that there is a possibility, as per some of the scholars, like I think O.M. Vijayan, that the name Kerala came from the Arabic word Khairullah, because Arabs were the Arabs lands were arid land, they were desert, and when they came to Kerala, they saw this green, lush resources. They named it as Khairullah. Once again, there is no much academic backing to it. There are other narrations too, like Khaira means coconut, but there is a possibility. And the Moplas, or the Kerala Muslims, kept relations, because of their trade, kept relations with not only Arabs, but even people of Africa. The Indian Ocean helped them to build trade relations globally with Persia. Now, there are a lot of stories about how Islam arrived in Kerala, but I am going to give one of the most popular stories regarding how Islam first arrived in Kerala. So there was this king by the name Cheruman Perumal, and he saw the splitting of the moon. And when the Arab traders came, they mentioned to him, this was done by a person in Arabia by the name Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Chairman Perumal expressed an interest to meet Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Arab traders take him to Arabia. He accepts Islam, and on his way back, he dies in Salalah, that's in Oman. Now, before his death, he had his companion, one of the Prophet's companion, Malik Dinar, and he tells him to take this message of Islam to Kerala. And Malik Dinar comes to Kerala and he spreads this message. The first mosque in Kerala the first mosque in India was built in Thrissur, in a place called Kodungalur, I think it's around 629 AD. And many people believe the first mosque in India is Quwwatul Islam Mosque in North India. That's not true, but the earliest mosque was built in India during the time of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's in Kerala, in Thrissur district. Now, the term Mapilas, where does this term come from? I get this question a lot. So, in Tamil language, in Tamil, Mapilas means son-in-law. And as I said, the Arab traders were foreigners. They came and married the local women in Kerala. So that is one possibility. The other possibility is the children of intermarriage, the kids from a foreign trader and a local woman. Just like in Malayalam, we say Maha Sambhavam, they became Maha and Pillai. Pillai in Dravidian language means son. So Maha Pillai. The third possibility is the Muslims in Kerala, they were an epitome of the character. They were at pinnacle of justice. They were highly respected. So people used to go to them if they had land disputes. So in that way, they were called Maha Pillai. Now, there are like among the Christians also, you find this name like Varghese Mapillai. I haven't researched into it much. The possible reason could be just like Islam arrived in Kerala, Christianity also arrived in Kerala through the foreign traders. So that is one responsibility. Now coming to the second E. Now Kerala had colonizers from Portuguese. First the Portuguese came, then the Dutch came, then the British came, and the Mapilas or the Kerala Muslims played a prominent role in resisting these colonizing forces. So when you fight these colonizers, you become economically deprived. And when you become economically deprived, that weakens you. So that is the second E. I first mentioned education, economic deprivation. And also when the Portuguese came, they tried to exploit the trade relations which Mapilas had. So going into the next slide, Kunnali Marakars, this is a title given to the naval chief. There were 4 Kunnali Marakars, 4 generations of Kunnali Marakars, and it's sometimes the arrival of Portuguese to Kerala is referred to as the 8th Crusade, because this time was a time when there was a heightened Islamophobia, and the people from Portuguese, the story of Spain, Muslim Spain, there were 7 wars of crusade to attack the Muslim Spain. And many people believe, since Mapilas were globally famous during those times, the Portuguese came to Kerala to disrupt, to attack these Muslims living in Kerala. And Zami ruins is a title given to the leader of Calicut. Calicut is a place in Kerala for those people who are not from Kerala. And he sought the help of Kunnali Marakars. Kunnali Marakars are Kerala Muslims, like I said, the title given to the Muslim naval chief. And the Kunnali Marakars had relations with the Ottomans and the Mamluk dynasty of Egypt. They sought help from them. There were a series of wars. It's a very long story. And during this time, another thing you have to notice is the Moplas and Nayars, the Hindus, were united. After the Portuguese came, they divided them. When the British comes, the Nayars went to the British side. So, and the other thing is, as a result of fighting this series of war with the Portuguese, the Moplas became economically deprived. Once again, Moplas are the other term used for Kerala Muslims. I know there are a lot of people who are attending who are not Malayalis, just to make it clear. Now, Tipu Sultan. Tipu Sultan is a very underrated, one of the most underrated king in India. You know, even though he's a Mysore king, he was a Mysore king, he played some role in Kerala Muslim history. He and his father, Hyder Ali, one of them was abolishing the Jammi system. Jammi system is, like I said, among the Hindus, there was the system of casteism where the landlords, the upper caste landlords didn't have to do anything. And they made all the work, they treated the lower caste Hindus as slaves to do their work. So Tipu Sultan, he was a very devout Muslim. He came and abolished this. He was very secular too. He was very tolerant of other religions in India, unlike many people have tried to paint him as a fanatic Muslim, as a communal person. That's not true. And he was a bibliophile. You know, he had his own library. He during his rule, he gave focus on development, science, rockets, and perhaps he understood the economical aspect. Like, economy is a very important part of development, and his wars were targeted against the East India Company, which was trying to which actually deprived India of a lot of its wealth. And Tipu Sultan, like I said, he's one of the great kings, but he's not much spoken about in Kerala. And this picture I found in the British Museum when I visited London, and they also have his gun which he used. He was he was very few South Indian kings in the British Museum. Now, coming to the Malabar Rebellion, once again, a very wide topic. So the Malabar Rebellion is an important movement, not only in the history of independence India, but in the history of global resistance movements. You can see when this rebellion happened against the British, it was even reported by the New York Times and many global newspapers. So there is a lot of things to say. Time won't permit me to go deep into it. It was started when in 1921, you know, the Khilafat movement, when the British and Mustafa Kamal Pasha, they decided to take away the Khilafat. The Moplas in Kerala, the Kerala Muslims, got together under the leadership of this person in the picture. His name is Ali Musalliyar, and also VM Haji, Variam Kunnat Haji. And there's other narrations where, like, to fight, they were not happy with the injustice shown towards the lower caste Hindus by the landlords. So it was a peace and struggle. A lot of people are once again trying to paint this as anti-Hindu, which is not true. Even the modern contemporary scholars like Stephen Dale, Roland Miller, and many people who have researched on this has clearly stated that there was no anti-Hindu sentiments, and it's not, and even one of the community or movements which studied regarding this movement was the communists, up to an extent that during the 1922 Moscow Party Congress, Lenin offered a garland to VM Haji, and he mentioned in a speech that we have to take inspiration from the Malabar Rebellion of 1921. Okay. Now, before moving into the North American history, it would be impossible for us to learn the North American Muslim history without touching upon the history of Islam in West Africa. So there is this person called Mansa Musa. I don't have time to go into his story. It's a very interesting story. He's like a real-time Marvel character, real-time Spider-Man, Superman. So in short, he was so rich, he's believed to be the richest man ever existed in the world. And he lived in a area called Timbuktu in West Africa, Mali Empire. Timbuktu is like, it was at a height of scholarship. They had universities like Oxford, Harvard. Now, there is a story where Mansa Musa, when he used to go, when he went for Hajj, he carried a lot of gold and he used to distribute gold. And if he feels like when he was traveling, if a particular village didn't have enough resources, it didn't have mosque, he used to donate. So in one of there's a documentation in Egypt. When he was in Egypt, he mentioned to a person that his father, he comes from a very wealthy kingdom. His father, they were very curious about what's across the Atlantic Ocean. So this was around 1200, 1300, and those times people didn't know about what's beyond Atlantic Ocean. America was not known to the people. So they had a lot of money, so they were curious. So a lot of ships sailed across the Atlantic Ocean and they never came back. Now, we in Brazil, there was recently excavations of, they found a community whose language is very similar to the language of West Africa. And also they found certain weapons which is similar to which is found in West Africa. So there is a high possibility, and this was before Columbus, even before great-grandfather of Columbus was born, that Muslims reached America before Columbus. And to get into to go more deep into this, there are many other documentations of Muslims, the presence of Muslims in America before Columbus. Follow Sheikh Hakeem Quick, who has done a lot of research on this. And this is some story we have to tell to our younger generations about the presence of Muslims in North America. And we are not outsiders. We reached America way before the Europeans. Now, there was something called transatlantic slavery. What transatlantic slavery is? Islam reached North America through transatlantic slavery. So they took these learned scholars. So like I said, West Africa was at height of scholarship. I'm just mentioning a few because we don't have time. Umar ibn Sa'id. He was a scholar. He was a very learned scholar. He was taken as slave from Senegal after 1500s, after Columbus came to America. And he first reached South Carolina and he escapes to North Carolina. Now, an interesting thing about Omar ibn Sa'id is there is some manuscripts. And we can see, this is one of his manuscripts, which is available in the, I think, Museum of North Carolina. Now, if you are able to read this, he's trying to remember, or he's trying to write Suratul Mulk from the Holy Quran, which starts which starts with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yeah, which mentions about the dominion of Allah. Like nobody has the right to rule us, or we don't have to bow down our head to anyone except Allah. So as slaves, they were not allowed to practice their religion. We know this, like slaves. So he had to, from his manuscripts, we understand, and even the current scholars just testifies to this. It's very clear that he was forced to accept Christianity, or they call it pseudo conversion. And there are even other, in his scripts, even he's trying to write down other surahs, like I think Surah An-Nasr, but they were not able to practice their deen because they were brought as slaves, and these colonizers didn't want them to follow Islam. Now, I just want to mention that I thought this is interesting. This is about Islam in the Caribbean islands. So unlike when the slavery was abolished in America, the colonizers brought some people from India to, like, mostly from Madras and Bengal. So they were known as indentured servants. The East Indians, like, we have a lot of Guyanese people in Canada. So these are two mosques in Guyana, and I think most of them will agree with me, it resembles the mosques in South India. So unlike the Africans who was taken as slaves, the East Indians brought from India, they were servants, they had more rights, so they were allowed to practice their religion. Hence we see, if you go to Guyana or the Caribbean islands like TNT, you will find mosques like this. So they were allowed to practice their faith. But the blacks brought from Africa, they were brought as slaves, and they were not allowed to practice their faith. So Islam got erased from the black community, because eventually, like the successive generations were not able to get connected to the Islamic roots until the organization by the name Nation of Islam. And before Nation of Islam, there were organizations like the Moorish Science Temple by Noble Drew Ali. What these organizations did, which is known as prototypic Islamic movements, is that they were not happy with Christianity, or they were not happy with the white man's religion. So they just wanted something to differentiate. So if you look at the constitution or the nation, if you read books on Nation of Islam, they are not similar to today's traditional Islam. They didn't even have Shahada. Like the founder of Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad, he even claimed divinity, and some places they say he tried to become a prophet. So they were not real Islam. But when Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, I wish I could speak a lot about them, but time won't permit me. And you know the story of how they came to Nation of Islam and they liberated from Nation of Islam. A lot of stories about them. Like Malcolm X, he goes to Hajj and he sees white and people of other colors, and he comes back to America and he says, see, this is not right. All white people are not bad people. We cannot judge people on the basis of color. And that he was assassinated, and he was a very broad-minded man, just like Muhammad Ali. He had eagerness to learn and know people, know things. That's the third E: education, enthusiasm, eagerness. So by 1960s in America, a lot of students also started coming from Indo-Pak, from Egypt. There was organizations like the Muslim Student Association, ISNA, ICNA. He had conversations with these people, and he was able to liberate himself from this Nation of Islam and join traditional Islam. And he was very vocal about social justice, not only on matters of Muslims or blacks, but everything. And he was assassinated by people. There's still some controversies. We are not sure if it was Nation of Islam or the FBI. And I want to, when the place where I lived, once Sheikh Umar Suleiman had visited University of Windsor, and he had an opportunity to meet Malcolm X, the family of Malcolm X. And he mentioned Malcolm X's wife told him that the socialists had claimed Malcolm X. The black people has claimed Malcolm X. When will the Muslims claim Malcolm X? And that was the identity he was most proud of. Now, coming to Muhammad Ali, same story. He was a very humble man. I read his autobiography, The Soul of the Butterfly, which is even available in Malayalam, Pumbateyude Atmavu. And I want to mention a personal encounter with me. One of my patients recently, and this has happened to me before in my 5 years of life in North America. Maybe people living in North America might also relate with me. He mentioned, he was an old man, 70 years old. He told me when he understood I was a Muslim, he calls me Sue. Sue, do you know, I think Islam is a great religion. And I asked him, why do you feel that way? He said, because Islam produced Muhammad Ali for America. Subhanallah. Just imagine the legacy he created. So he was such a great man. And it's very evident from his autobiography. And even if you have seen his interviews on YouTube, even though he was a very global figure, he always says he's nothing, and he's thankful to Allah, and he shows gratitude to Allah. Warisuddin Muhammad was the son of Elijah Muhammad. He was a very smart man. So what he did was, when Elijah Muhammad died, he knew that Nation of Islam was not the actual Islam. So very smartly, he didn't come out and announce, like black Muslims, Nation of Islam is not the right religion. So what he did is he just dissolved the Nation of Islam. So these black Muslims goes and integrates with other communities, other Muslim communities. But in 1977, Louis Farrakhan again starts Nation of Islam. It's not as strong as the Nation of Islam, which was there in the 30s and 60s, but we still have Nation of Islam today in America. This is a photo of Malcolm X when he visited Canada in 1965. And this is the Mariam Mosque in Chicago, where the center of Nation of Islam. And if you go into their mosque, it's very different. They have chairs like the churches, you know. Okay, now coming to immigration, that's the other way how Islam reached Kerala. So immigration started in 19th and 20th centuries. And, you know, America has this thing with the race, the color. So people of the white Muslims from these countries, Arabs, Albanians, Turks, Lebanese, they were initially the first, and that's also because of the British-Ottoman relationship, to come to America. And they are mostly concentrated in the Midwest. That's like Chicago or Detroit. If you come to these places, you'll find a lot of Arab Muslims. And that's why sometimes Chicago is referred to as American Medina. And Mother Mosque is believed to be the first, one of the first mosques. I'll show you the picture in America, built by the immigrants. And here in Canada, it was Al Rashid Mosque in Alberta, in Edmonton. It was built in 1938. And education, like me or many of you who came to America or Canada for education, is other way of immigration. Now, this is one of the picture I took when I attended an exhibition in Chicago. It was known as American Medina, and it had a lot of stories of immigrants in America, in Chicago. And this is one of the interesting mural I found. Like, if you know the Willis Tower, it's just like the CN Tower of Toronto. It was built by a Muslim, a Bangladeshi immigrant. And this is a Quranic verse. It's Inni ma'i rabbi shahidin. It was a verse where Musa alayhi salam, when they were running away from Pharaoh, he's just giving assurance to the people of Egypt. So this is the Mother Mosque in Ohio, in US. Okay, coming to the end of the discussion, meeting points, the most interesting part. So you can see a lot of similarities between the North American Muslim history and Kerala Muslim history. One is the role of the oceans, the Indian Ocean for Kerala and Atlantic Ocean for America. If these oceans were not there, you know, the history might have been different. This helped. So through the Indian Ocean, through trade, the Muslims reached Kerala, and through the Atlantic Ocean, transatlantic slavery brought Muslims to America. And Vasco da Gama arrived in Calicut. Columbus arrived in America, and both of them used help from Muslims. So Vasco da Gama, when he left Persia, Portuguese, he stopped in Africa and took help of Muslims. Then he went to Gujarat, and from there he reached Calicut. Columbus used the map made by the Spanish Muslims to reach America. So that's an interesting thing. Both of them used help of the Muslim intellect, and they used it, unfortunately, to exploit the Muslims. Both of these communities were very advanced before colonization. In case of the transatlantic slaves, like I said, West Africa was at the height of scholarship, but after slavery, when they reached America, they lost everything. The Moplas before the Portuguese arrived were very respected, and they were very advanced in trade, but fighting the colonization, they got deprived, and they weakened. And both of them resisted colonization, and this is because of Islam, because the foundation of Islam is monotheism. We are only supposed to bow down in front of our creator. So when they were colonized, both of them felt that the need to fight these colonizers. Now, an interesting thing about Tipu Sultan had relation with Thomas Jefferson of USA, who's believed to have written the Constitution of USA, because when the British was ruling South India, even they colonized USA. So he kept relations with Thomas Jefferson. He wrote a letter to Thomas Jefferson. You can find this in Google. And in the Battle of Delaware, which happened in the United States, there is a ship by the name Hyder Ali, which is father of Tipu Sultan. So Tipu Sultan played such a huge role in this war. And the history continues. So to conclude my presentation, as you have seen, let me go back again to from where I started. When Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in his farewell speech, said to the people to take the message of Islam to the rest of the world. when the Quran says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةٌ وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ رَسُولٌ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا, that I have created you as a middle society, Ummatul Wasat, a most important society. So you become a witness to mankind, not to the Muslims or your community, just like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was rahmatul alameen. So just like these personalities which I mentioned, like Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, the Mopla Muslims, they did not only care about their problems. They took it as a responsibility to fight colonization, to fight for the cause of Black Muslims, to fight for the cause of their country. Hence, the conclusion is, again, going back into the 3 E's, by educating ourselves, by economically empowering the underprivileged communities, with the eagerness to learn, we should be deeply rooted and derive strength, our strength from Islam. But our service, our should not be limited to our own community or just ourselves. It should be able to take this message of Islam through word, through our actions, and through our character to the mankind living in a pluralistic society. May Allah help us to follow the footsteps of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and these great personalities, and gather us tomorrow in his Jannatul Firdaus. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Suhail. Very, very informative. I should say I learned a lot of new things today from this presentation. Excellent presentation, Suhail, and thank you very much for taking the time. I know we've got 10 minutes remaining for taking any questions, so please post your questions on the group chat, or if you're watching on YouTube, do post them on the comment section on YouTube, and we would try to answer them in the remaining period. So a question that I had, Suhail, when I heard your presentation was, you mentioned the first mosque in India was in Thrissur. It was enlightening to hear that, first of all. And then you did mention that the mosques in India, or in Kerala specifically, has a different architectural structure, right? So can you elaborate a bit more on these aspects and how these mosques came into being and how they have evolved over the years?
So, like I said, we have this conventional picture of mosques, because most of the mosques we see today in North India and even in Kerala are mosques with a dome and a pillar, and we feel like if the dome and pillar is not there, then it's not a mosque. So this is not, and people call it Islamic architecture. It's not Islamic architecture, it's Ottoman architecture. So even if you look at certain mosques in India, like talking about Kerala itself, look at the picture, the old, I think in Google, the old picture of this Cheruman Masjid is available. And even a lot of mosques in India, like the Madai Palli in Pazhangadi, that's also one of the earliest mosques. We don't have the old picture. They didn't have the minaret and the dome. They just took the local. So because Islam doesn't tell us to have a mosque of particular architecture. We are free to, as long as it's not against the Sharia of Islam, you can build. And when I visited Kashmir, the mosques in Kashmir resembles the Buddhist church. So each places have the mosque of their culture, their architecture. But since the Ottoman influence is so strong, people try to make the mosque based on their architecture. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that definitely does. I think questions have been flowing in. I'll just shoot out a few questions and then you can answer them. The first question from Sara and Sadi. The question is, Islam doesn't have casteism, as we all know. Why is that Indian Muslims are so obsessed with being Sayyid from Arab descent? And why are the North Indian Muslims, mostly converted, are looking down upon?
I didn't get the second part. Why are the North Indian Muslims looked down upon?
Or looked down upon, yes.
Okay.
And
So
mostly converted Muslims.
mostly converted Muslims in North
North
India.
India. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so casteism. So yeah, I also lived in North India. I lived in Delhi for some time. So this is something known as cultural assimilation. So I know the Sayyids, like my name is Hashim and it's a made up name. And when I went to North India, people used to ask me, are you from Hashimi? So I was like, like when I lived in Gurgaon in Haryana, this is very prevalent, and I was surprised to know that even Muslims have caste system. So this is known as this phenomenon is known as cultural assimilation because we got it from the Hindus, because Hindus have caste system, and especially in North India when the partition happened, it didn't affect Kerala much, but it affected North India, especially places like Haryana and Punjab. So they started taking the culture of Hindus. So that's how caste systems came in North India, and to an extent, it's also I have seen in Kerala we are not very immune. We have this Tangals, a way of treating the Tangals as great. So it's still there. To an extent, it happened in Kerala too. The second question, I'm not very clear about if the conversion part, but looked down upon also, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm unaware. But one thing is, like I said, I mentioned the three E's. Like because of the Gulf migration, the Kerala Muslims were able to economically empower themselves. And even education-wise, if you come to Kerala, we have a lot of even in North, we have like Diobandi and all, but more centers of learning in Kerala. So education, the Kerala Muslims are definitely more educated than the North Indians. So that's the reason maybe we can see the Kerala Muslims advancing more compared to the North Indian Muslims.
Jazakallah khair, Suhail, again for answering the question. I'm just looking at the other chat box to see if we have more questions coming in. So if you have any questions, I think we've got 5 more minutes. If there are questions, please post them in your chat box or on the comment section if you are watching this program on YouTube. And Suhail, as we wait for questions, I know we have this slide up here with a few photographs. What's the relevance to the presentation today?
Yeah, so like I mentioned in my end, we as Muslims, we have to be, our strength should be derived, our root should be from Islam, and we should derive our strength from Muslim as a Muslim. But our service should not be limited to our own community. And I feel like all these people, like whether it be Ilhan Omar or Yusuf Ali, they made Muslims proud, just like Muhammad Ali. Like I mentioned the story of Muhammad Ali. He's not only known among Muslims or Americans; he's known to the world. So because of him, today Islam is having a positive light. So that's the relevance of these speeches. All these personalities, I just don't know much about Ahmad, but I know about all others. I think they have made Islam look very good among the global community. So I think that's the relevance, why the reason I put all these pictures.
Thank you, Suhail. So a few more questions. This is from Sister Razina Al-Swaf. Which is a mosque in Kashmir that resembles Buddhist church?
I don't see. When I went there, I felt mosques in general. I don't have a specific name. Even the famous mosque, Hazrat Bell, if I remember it rightly, I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't look like a mosque with a dome and a minaret. But I have to look into my old. But in general, I felt like the mosque over there, it resembles like the Buddhist temple. I don't have a specific name for any mosque.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
somebody, I think they wanted to ask a question and requested for unmuting. Please go ahead.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
So,
സോ ഒരു ചോദ്യം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു ഈ റീസെന്റ് ആയിട്ട് എസ്പെഷ്യലി മലബാർ റെബലിയൻ ആയിട്ടുള്ള ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട കാര്യങ്ങളാണ്. അപ്പം അതിൽ MGS നാരായണൻ ഒരു ഇന്റർവ്യൂവിൽ പറഞ്ഞത് ലൈക്ക് ഇറ്റ് സ്റ്റാർട്ടഡ് ആസ് എ റെബലിയൻ അഗൈൻസ്റ്റ് ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് ആൻഡ് ദെൻ ചില സ്ഥലങ്ങളിൽ അത് ഇറ്റ് ബിക്കം ആന്റി ഹിന്ദു. So do you have any reference that it became anti-Hindu in some place, and then what is the reason for that?
yes. So yeah, I am not Atra, but I'll tell you from what I read. So there are readings from. So I just want to translate it to other. He's asking. The question was about the Malabar Rebellion, and I did mention that some people are trying to paint it anti-Hindu. So some of the people, like famous personalities like B.R. Ambedkar, Annie Besant, and I forgot. They have written in their writings that the Malabar Rebellion is anti-Hindu. So I think this is where the references is coming from. And of course, now the Indian government, they're trying to get something to paint these kind of great events as anti-Hindu. So and it, like, if you look at from outside, if you don't go into the depth of it, there is a possibility that people might perceive it as anti-Hindu, because like I said, even there is a Malayalam movie, I think it was in 1988 by IV Shashi. So that could be the reason, like people are like, they get a picture, and there was this lower caste Hindus converting into Islam because of the justice. So all these factors might have given this picture. And I don't like, the strong point is, I don't think like the communists will take example inspiration from this if it was actually anti-Hindu, so I'm not a very, like, maybe someone else might be able to answer it better, but this is what I understood from a very transparent perspective.
Thank you, Suhaib. I think we have time for a few more questions, so I'll just shoot them out. We've got questions coming in on the chat box. The next question is from Mohsin Koti. Do they have Islamic groupism among Americans?
Yeah, okay. So to be honest, I don't know. It's not as bad as in Kerala. That's all I can answer. But it's definitely, yeah, I think that's only what I can answer.
Inshallah. The next question is from Salim Sheikh. Can you please share some more info of Mansa Musa?
Okay, so Mansa Musa's story is that, so he was, like I said, a West African king. And people say that he was the richest person ever existed. And you can find his videos on YouTube now. It started coming recently after research from a European student called Mustafa Briggs. So he went for Hajj. When he went for Hajj, he carried, I'm not sure with the numbers, around 100 camels with him from West Africa. And what he did was, with this 100 camels was loaded with gold. So just imagine, like in Canada, when you travel, we have on routes, right? You stop at each on route and you feel, oh, this place needs a mosque. You pay a lot of gold. Or you go to the next town and you feel, oh, this place is very poor. You give them. So Mansa Musa, when he went for Hajj, he transformed the economy of North Africa. Because what he was doing was, when he carried a lot of camels and gold, and he started distributing golds to all these regions. So that is the story of Mansa Musa in short. And for more, you can just type on YouTube. You'll get more interesting stories about him.
Thank you, Suhail. I'll take two more questions. I know we are up on time, and then close it. The next question is from Umar Wuide. The question is, can you please share titles of few books for reading on Kerala Muslims and culture, as well as early Islam in North America?
Okay, so Kerala Muslim history, my readings were mostly from, I think I shared the video, Other Books publication. And I think you all might have seen, they have They have done a great job, because there is two kinds of reading. There is academic readings, like if university journals and have published some. But for a common reader, we need books like these, which because we don't want like a general reader don't want to know where did I get this reference from, who quoted this. So other book publication, like we have the video, and if I am sure we will be able to connect you with them. They have a lot of titles. One of my favorite is Tuhfatul Mujahideen. It's a translation by Zainuddin Makhdoom, and there are many other titles. Regarding American Muslim history, it's a very new thing. Like even the Muslim history of Islam in Canada, if you are on Instagram, if you can follow Hassam Munir, my friend Hassam History, because we are still learning. It's very recent. All the stories about Umar ibn Saeed and etc. and all, it came out very recently. So I cannot recommend any books, but there's a book called Deeper Roots by Sheikh Hakeem Quick. That would be a good reading for North American history.
Thank you. So a last question from Abdis Fatah. What role do you think Muslims in the Western world can positively impact the Muslim world? How do you think we can fight xenophobic behaviors in our own communities?
Yeah, I think the answer to a good closing question, the answer to that is my presentation itself. Like I said, we Muslims should be able to get out, and we might be from wherever we are coming from, Indians, Somalia or Pakistan, wherever we are coming from. We have to make sure that we present, even though there is a lot of hate narratives in the media, social media or media, but if you are able to present yourself in this pluralistic culture as a true Muslim by service, and even when possible by doing da'wah, like allaying the misconceptions of Islam, then we can build from an individual basis, we can build a positive image of Islam. And we are blessed to be living in North America. We know like a lot of places Muslims have been persecuted. Definitely we have to fight even like now in India, we have the problem of RSS. I know a lot of organizations are trying to lobby the Canadian government to ban them. So these kind of activities, up to our, like based on our capability, we should engage. So that's what we can do, and seek help from Allah. That's the most important thing. We have to have tawakkul in Allah.
Jazakallah khair, Suhail, for closing with a great message for everyone who's attended. And I know people would have more questions, so feel free to reach out on our WhatsApp group or directly Suhail, if Suhail can share his contact info later, if you have more questions. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for taking the time today on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, wherever you are across the world. Jazakallah khair, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.